JD Vance and Marco Rubio have made their case criticizing radical leftism in recent weeks. And also, let's remember, the great Thomas Sowell has been doing it for decades. And we're going to discuss some of that in this video. First, let's watch this from Kevin Sorbo, Hercules. This woman with a kindness t-shirt is the epitome of leftism. Look at this nonsense. Escucha. That's disturbing. Radical leftist women have some issues. It says there, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Really, as she's beating the crap out of a piñata that represents an actual person who people have tried to assassinate on at least 2 occasions. And, arguably even tried to, even more than that, really. 2 just came close, which is scary. But that's the stage of radical leftism. Like, just talking about empathy doesn't make you empathetic. And that's what the socialists tend to do. They don't actually do anything good for anyone. But here's another video of Marco Rubio's speech where Asmongold, the Twitch streamer, talks about how great his speech is when it really is.
This is a distinctive and unique evil.
I'm going to turn it up and I'm going to reset it.
It has always been driven by a hatred. Above all else, a hatred for civilization itself. This is a distinctive and unique evil. It has always been driven by a hatred. Above all else, a hatred for civilization itself.
We just saw that hatred in the previous video. Who does stuff like that? I never see right-wing people building effigies to left-wing people and then beating the crap out of them with clubs. It's just amazing.
It is a revolt of the worst against
amazing
the best.
In a bad way.
A revolt of the weak and the cowardly against the strong and the good. It is perpetrated by those who cannot build, who cannot create, who cannot achieve great things, and take their revenge upon the world for their own inadequacy.
That's right.
By seeking to destroy those who can. This is what radical leftism is. It may wear very...
Oh my God. Fucking finally. This, if I hear, like, I want these things accompanied by actions, but I love the fact that the words are just simply being said.
Yeah.
This is really good. It has to go, this isn't the step that I want to be at, but I understand this is the bottom of the staircase. And we're going up.
Different slogans and ideologies across place and time. They can call themselves anti-capitalist or anti-imperialists or communists or anarchist or Marxist, but the fundamental character is always the same. It's always the same. It is a poisonous resentment cloaked in the language of equality and justice and liberation, an overwhelming need to tear down what greater men have built, to wreck what is beautiful and what is right on behalf of people who are only filled with ugliness.
Yep.
This is one of the things that I really like about...
We saw that ugliness just a second ago, like in the previous video. My goodness.
About Marco Rubio is the fact that I think that this is an advantage that he really does have over JD Vance, is that he speaks with a certain amount of emotional, like, clarity. And, like, JD Vance is very unemotional, in my opinion. Marco Rubio has the emotion, and I think he has it in the right way.
I'm not seeing a lot of emotion in the way he's talking right now. I think he's just stating the facts, and that's what JD Vance tends to do as well.
Nothing else to offer the world. Through violence and through terror, they once again seek to impose their ugliness on all of us.
True.
The old dogma was wrong. The old dogma was wrong. None of this is driven by idealism. It is not utopian. In fact, it is the opposite.
I can't wait to vote for this.
One of the criticisms you sometimes hear of communism, for example, is that it sounds good in theory, but it never works in practice.
I think Rubio should stay as Secretary of State. I said it in another video as well. JD Vance for 8 years, then Rubio can keep doing his Secretary of State thing and then maybe become president after that as well. He's still a young guy.
That's actually not true. Communism does not sound good in theory. The world it envisions for all of us is small, flat, gray, leveled of all exception, drained of all that is good and noble in the human soul.
Oh my God. Oh my God, bro, we're gonna run that back.
Actually not true. Communism does not sound good in theory. The world it envisions for all of us is small, flat, gray, leveled of all exception, drained of all that is good and noble in the human soul. The world it envisions is a world without courage, a world without creativity or ambition, a world without heroes or glory or great causes to strive towards, a world without miracles, without myths, without men who rise above the rest to do incredible and extraordinary things. And the world communism envisions is a world without God.
Oh my God.
Well, let's remember again, the socialists were very explicit. They were very explicit in the 18th and 19th century about their love of Satan as the ultimate rebel, you know? And people make excuses for that. They say, oh, well, it was only a symbol. Well, it's a degenerate symbol. I don't support that idea at all. Even if they're not full on, you know, weirdos. They are really, but they still use that guy as the ultimate rebel. They reject Imago Dei. What is Imago Dei? The idea that every human being, every stranger is still made in the image of God and then raises them up. The homeless person is now equal to a king or a queen in value under the eyes of God. And that's really what's led to massive amounts of increases in rights in the West. And Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance and Thomas Sowell all understand that.
Oh my God. This is insane.
For these architects of revolutionary violence, the towering achievement of our civilization, for them, it's an unbearable humiliation, a reminder of what they cannot do, and a reminder of what they cannot be. So they choose instead
they're
to
losers.
destroy. They attack pipelines.
Yep.
They attack railroads. They attack power grids and laboratories, the physical embodied symbols of power and invention and achievement. This is the nature of the terrorism we face today. They despise the West because the West is great.
Fucking exactly. Dude, this is exactly what I want to hear about. It is. This is like, I want to hear, like, we have such a huge problem with domestic terrorists, and we have to go after these people the same way that we went after Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and ISIS. We have our own ISIS inside of America right now, and they're all over the country, and it needs to be dealt with. He's still a neocon boomer. We need better options. Okay, well then provide me with one. But until I get that, I'm going to be going with this guy. I like Marco Rubio a lot.
Oops.
And I think he's one of the best options we have right now. And I'm going to stick with him. Come up with something better, I'll be there. But right now, I go with what I can get. And that's the way I look at it. Have you seen Trump's speech? He talked about election interference. Yeah, I'm going to look at a little bit of that.
That's huge as well. Yeah, good stuff. All right, here's another one from... says here from John Strand, it says, wow, this is the most powerful 4 minutes of truth you'll ever see. The woke, progressive, Marxist leftists are consumed by envy, right? That's the true essence of Marxism and socialism and communism and fascism and critical theory of all types and postmodernism. These are all part of the same degenerate religion. They're just different denominations within the same religion. By envy and loathing, coveting the moral goodness in others they have rejected themselves, leftism is a hideous evil and it will destroy them.
The leftist looks at what is beautiful and what is good and what is natural and is filled with envy and hatred. The leftist looks at a perfect family with a perfect life and a perfect job and perfect kids that goes to church every Sunday and is filled with a feeling of inadequacy and jealousy, and they covet, and they turn those emotions ultimately into a desire to subjugate, to oppress, and to inflict pain and suffering. It's not a coincidence that when you look at these violent Antifa demonstrations, you see any photograph of those who were assembled, to be blunt, not one of the people that is demonstrating looks like a normal person. Not one looks normal. They're all deformed in some way in their appearance, in their dress, in their mannerism. Why is that? Why, if you look at two photographs and you see a normal American street, you see an Antifa protest, why do the people that are violently demonstrating, why is there not one normal-looking person among them? Every one of them, through the course of their life and their decisions, has scarred their body and their appearance in many different ways, to the point in which their outer appearance becomes a manifestation of their inner hatred. Trust your instincts. To all people and across all civilizations, you know what normal is. You know what beautiful is. You know what good is. You know that families are right. You know that children are precious and beautiful and must be protected. You know that the criminal and the junkie and the predator is a threat to normal, healthy living. This is so much deeper than issues about taxation and regulation, although they're incredibly important. It's about normal, healthy, ordered living. And the violent leftists, for these deep-seated reasons, going back to the earliest wisdom taught to us in the Bible about coveting. And I'm not talking about rich versus poor. I'm talking about a much deeper kind of coveting. Coveting people who are morally superior, who are superior in the simple, truthful way they live their lives. People that they look at who are happy and ordered and peaceful and contributing to the communities. That burns an ember in them, and that's how you end up with the horrors we've seen throughout history, where good families are dragged out into the street and executed. And you might say, again, you're describing a future that seems impossible to conceive of. When it comes to preventing these horrors, it is the burden and the duty of good people of all walks of life to understand that you will always be accused of raising the alarm too loudly. If you wait until the point where the worst outcome is so obvious that no one can deny it, you've already lost the battle. That's the fundamental point. If you say, I will not raise this alarm until the threat is so present and so clear and so obvious and so imminent that none can deny it, it's already too late. It's already too late. I would rather prevent a threat from occurring and be accused for the rest of my life of having falsely raised the alarm, knowing in myself that I was right, than for fear of being judged having waited too long until the point of no return has been crossed. The good news is that we are far away from the point of no return. So all of us should organize together and work together for the good and the benefit of all the people in our societies, of all walks of life, of all persuasions, to deliver for them what they are justly entitled to, which is to live with safety, with fundamental human dignity, and with the ability to live in peace and harmony with their families and neighbors.
Fantastic. I love it, especially hearing some great lines from a fellow bald guy. You know, we always got the best lines. It's just the way it is. Okay, here's another video from Rothmus. Back in the day, the KGB would send agents who used critical theory to split every society into victims and oppressors, to deliberately stir class against class, race against race, and faith against faith, until the fighting created enough chaos to blame the leader, tank his support, and slide their puppet into power while everyone was distracted, right? That's the objective of critical theorists, is to make you think that institutions and culture, the two things that liberals and conservatives protect, are somehow intrinsically evil. And that's really unfortunate. You know, you have crip theory, which argues that Jesus Christ is ableist. I mean, there's no type of critical theory that's not completely anti-Christianity. And again, Christianity is the reason for the massive increase of rights in the West over the last couple thousand years. So let's watch this video real quick.
KGB would send in agents to observe all the groups. They called it critical theory, where you simply observe all economic groups, the proletariat versus the bourgeois, working class against the business owners, ethnic groups, Bosnians, Croats, Serbs, religious groups, Sunni, Shia, Orthodox, and they would categorize them as victims and oppressors, haves and have-nots. And then they would stir them up against each other to fight, and they would have bloodshed. And then when the bloodshed happened, people want to blame somebody, and they would co-opt the media to blame the leader of the country. And as his popularity would fall, they would do a coup or a rigged election and replace the leader with a Soviet puppet. All the violence stops, and everybody's happy for a while until they realize we just gave up our freedom. So how do you destroy?
That's the problem too, is that socialists always realize these things way too late. The useful idiots, as Yuri, however you say his name, Bezmenov, the former KGB agent, would point out. Here's another great video from Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell and Barack Obama. I see him as someone who all his life has been associated with people who fundamentally don't believe in the principles of this country. And unfortunately, that's a common problem with leftism, isn't it? Let's watch the video from the great Thomas Sowell.
I see him as someone who all his life has been associated with and part of a group of people who fundamentally don't believe in the principles of this country. Not only people, the most obvious example, obviously, is Jeremiah, right? People like Bill Ayers, who he's tried to disavow, but people who fundamentally think that we're on the wrong track, we have the wrong principles, and we need to be changed, whether we want to be or not.
Tom, you mentioned Jeremiah Wright, his pastor at a church in Chicago. You mentioned Bill Ayers, who was a former member of
the Weather Underground.
The Weather Underground, exactly.
Wow.
What about his formation, his intellectual formation at Columbia, Harvard Law School?
Well, as he himself says, he always sought out the most radical people. He worked as a community organizer. I don't think most people stop and think, what does a community organizer do? He doesn't organize a community.
It's not bake sales. It's not bake sales he's organizing.
No, he's not telling people in the community how to shop better and stuff like that. He is mobilizing all the resentments, organizing them in order to put them into a battle to get what they want from other people.
Great points from Thomas Sowell right there. Barack Obama was unfortunately one of the worst things to happen to the U.S. His presidency just dramatically increased animosity in this country, dramatically increased the people's disbelief in the United States. Patriotism got annihilated amongst Democrats. It used to be only a little lower than Republicans 20 years ago. And then, since Obama became president, it's just decreased precipitously. And that's really unfortunate because America is the greatest country that's ever existed. Nobody fights for rights like Americans do. Nobody has emphasized those rights across the world like Americans have. Okay, let's watch another video from John Stossel. Love this guy. It says, if you have always believed that everyone should play by the same rules, that would have gotten you labeled a radical 50 years ago, a liberal 25 years ago, and a racist today, says Thomas Sowell. So we're referencing Thomas Sowell once again. Check this out.
After last summer's protests, experts declared what America must do for Black Americans.
The only way to close a wealth gap is by transferring wealth.
We have to abolish policing.
Reparations. Listening to them, I kept hearing the voice of Tom Sowell.
I haven't been able to find a single country in the world where the policies that are being advocated for blacks in the United States have lifted any people out of poverty.
Sowell's an economist who writes great books about economics and culture. Today, he defends free markets and criticizes the conceit of political planners. But he once was a Marxist.
What was your wake up to what was wrong with that line of thinking?
Facts.
Thomas Sowell was born in North Carolina at the start of the Great Depression. His father died before he was born, his mother soon after. When he was 9, a relative took him to Harlem.
We were much poorer than the people in Harlem or most anywhere else today. But in another sense, in the sense of the things you need to get ahead, I was enormously more fortunate than most black kids today.
Partly because a friend showed him the Harlem Public Library.
When you start getting in the habit of reading when you're 8 years old, that's a different ballgame.
His reading and early life experiences turned him into a Marxist.
So I would take the Fifth Avenue bus, pass all these Lord and Taylor and all these fancy places, and then suddenly there were the tenements. And I wondered, why is this? It's so different. And nothing in the schools or most of the books seem to deal with that. And Marx dealt with that.
What then changed him was his first job.
I was a summer intern at the U.S. Department of Labor. One of my biggest concerns was about minimum wages. At first I thought, well, this is good because all these people are poor and they'll get a little higher income. And so that'll be helpful. And then as I studied economics, I began to see, well, there's a downside. They may lose their jobs completely. And when I came up with how we might test this, I was waiting to hear congratulations, you see, that I had this. And I could see these people were stunned. They said, oh, this idiot has stumbled on something that will ruin us all.
Again, bureaucrats only emphasize inefficiency. They don't care about becoming more efficient. Their livelihoods are dependent on being inefficient and asking the federal government for more money to subsidize their inefficiency.
I realized the U.S. Department of Labor had its own agenda and interests, and that did not necessarily mean that whether poor people lost their jobs for minimum wages or got higher pay was their highest priority.
He found out that people in the government didn't give a rip whether or not it worked or didn't work. They were simply implementing the policy. And that's what shocked him and caused him to begin to rethink lots of his assumptions.
These video clips come from a new documentary about Sowell.
This whole notion that the black family has always been disintegrating, that is nonsense.
What I find most interesting about Sowell's work is that it utterly contradicts what Americans are taught about black poverty. Sowell's claims of systemic racism in America are propaganda.
If you go back into the 20s, you find that married couple families were much more prevalent among blacks then. As late as 1930, blacks had lower unemployment rates than whites. So all these things that we complain about and attribute to the era of slavery, those things should have been worse in the past than in the present.
Sowell says the bigger cause of blacks' problems today is welfare.
You began to have the mindset that goes with the welfare state, so that there was no stigma any longer attached, for example, to being on relief.
The things they thought were going to help did not help, and in many cases made things worse.
Sowell concluded that many government programs did much more harm than good because of affirmative action.
Something like 1/4 of all the black students going to MIT do not graduate. You're talking about a pool of people whom you are artificially turning into failures by mismatching them with the school.
Saying such things doesn't make Sowell popular with today's political elites, but he doesn't seem to care.
Tom is absolutely fearless. He will not compromise any of his opinions for the sake of social politeness.
And so today's politically correct media rarely give his work the attention it deserves.
The media, the television and the print media, they've wised up. You can't argue with Tom, so you might as well hide what he's doing. And that's what they're doing. They're just ignoring what he's written because there's no way that they can argue with Tom Sowell.
Today, so
absolutely. He does too much research. They can't compete with him. You know, his books have shown before that, you know, while black teenagers in the first half of the 20th century often had higher rates of employment than white teenagers, that black families often had the highest rates of two-parent households, and the welfare state completely annihilated that. All right, let's finish up this video with a quick video from J.D. Vance's "Defending Our Culture Isn't Radical, It's Reasonable," right? But radical leftists want to destroy institutions and culture. Again, the two things that liberals and conservatives protect. So let's see what he has to say.
So to everybody in the UK who rejects that idea, I'd encourage them to just keep on going. It's okay to want to defend your culture. It's okay to want to live in a safe neighborhood. It's okay to want your job to go to yourself and your neighbors and not to a stranger who you don't even know. It is reasonable for the people in Western societies to want to control who comes into their country and who doesn't.
Absolutely true. You know, these are the types of things that we should embrace. You know, J.D. Vance or Rubio as president in 2028 would be a great sign for the United States, I think. So hopefully that's what happens. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. You know, leaving a comment really helps with the algorithm. It's much appreciated. Have a great day.